Good evening. I wanted to come and talk to the community in regards to just what I've learned. And I shared little bits and pieces, and it seems like you never can get enough simply because we really don't understand as a people how the compulsory laws affect us as a people. We are living in a nation where it is, we're going through difficult times simply because they're going to impeach the president. Now, whether he goes or stays, it doesn't matter. The impeachment trial is happening. And what we learned as Black people, what we learned as African descendants of slaves in America, what we know as Black people, Black Americans, is that the rules do not apply to us either. So you're in a public school system that the law requires that you participate in. And there is no protection for you as an individual. And I know this because, simply, I was always there with my sons. But I can honestly say that there weren't that many parents who looked like me that were participating in the education arena. I've met wonderful people along the way and worked with wonderful people. Maxine Pepper worked for Grant, and she supported me totally. All this gray hair didn't get here for nothing. I had to learn on my own. I had to step up my game to ensure that my children would be successful. And not only like successful, but sustainable, that they had the basic skills to sustain life. And that's what we all need to understand as Americans. It's not that you are a Democrat or a Republican. It's not that we pretend to play this political game, because politics only have to do with money, capital. And so, we need to understand that we as a people really have never really participated in the game, because we came here as slaves, and then somehow they gave us the opportunity to live free, but they really didn't. They did create the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. There were all these civil rights issues about housing and education and everything to bring access to a people that were denied, a people that provided an opportunity for America to be a great nation, because we brought capital to America as a people. And I can't say that I understand what happened during slave days, because I probably wouldn't have made it. And that's honest. That's just an honest opinion. We are American citizens, period. There is not more or less that I can say to you. But what I can say to you is the importance of understanding that if we're going to participate in the process of the harvest, because that's what we need to understand, that this has to do with harvesting a product and being human capital. And with America having the largest prison population, and then you can go down the large cities and find out where the largest number of African Americans are housed in the juvenile and the justice system. And it's just us, it's nobody else. And when you think about the word compliance, and then as we're just supposed to accept, it's something we're supposed to accept, that if he had been more compliant, he would be still living today. What does that say to you as a human being, as a child in this nation, that you have to comply with everything? And then we get it twisted, because some people who demand compliance are also guilty of criminal misconduct. My goodness. I am just disgusted with the public education system here in Clark County. And it's not because they don't have a great program going on. It's because they choose to deny people who are not coming from great homes. I will say it. We can understand that some of our families just don't have basic skills. And when women have children, they don't necessarily have a whole lot to give to those children. And whatever they're giving may be a lot of chaos and dysfunction. But when you get to the schoolhouse, that compulsory piece of life that ties your family into the system for life, when you get there to the part that happens, then understand this. Understand that it means that you are tied to the system for some 12 years or more. And then after we go through this system of public education, if you didn't pick a career or you didn't get a skill, or for whatever reason, you weren't able to engage in society, well, they got a place for you. And if you become disabled, whatever, they have services for you. That's why we pay taxes. And we really, as a people, need to understand what taxes are all about and how public policy is applied to everyone. Because if you choose not to, then it will be provided for you. And that's just real. We all need to understand that we're living in a nation that requires participation. And the conversation for, excuse me, African Americans, well, I don't know where that exists. Everyone else is talking about us, but we're not necessarily talking about, well, then I take that back. We do talk about the issues. We are aware. What we're not in control of is any resources that are allocated to ensure that access happen. That kind of, was the whole intent behind the magnet school programs. And when that happened in America, it was to increase diversity and increase integration. Well, for whatever reason, that happened. Magnet happened, but magnets were not connected to the Brown versus Board of Education. They were just, there's no maintenance of effort to ensure that that access was actually created. So it didn't happen. Well, it did happen for some people. It happened for people who understand that they have a right to have services, that it is actually a human right to have functional services that are managed, measurable, and bring a benefit. I went to some little workshop that someone was offering services to children with disabilities, and I thought, how unfortunate that the parents were not forcing the local school systems to do the full educational assessments to determine the level of support needed for the student in the classroom environment. How unfortunate that people take special education as a negative. Somehow it's just a negative thing. I can tell you, it was never, ever negative. It was an opportunity for my children to have access to the best opportunity in life, to learn skills that would be retained for life, and the skills that they learned were sustainable. It's reality that we're living in, that if we choose to somehow not pay attention to what's going on around us, that somehow it's just not going to affect us. And I'm here to tell you that everything that happens in the world affects us in some way or not. How do we choose what we take time to acknowledge that's happening around us? I think we have to choose by our choices. So if you haven't chosen to have a child yet, it's not something that you would think about, but it is something that you should think about, because as an individual coming through the public system, because we all participate in the public system, because if we don't, our parents are paying for a private system, but the law is mandatory, compulsory, meaning that we have to pay for education and we have to pay for healthcare, and we're paying for these things and helping to fund these things through taxes that are paid in America. We all pay taxes. And if you don't pay taxes, well, someone's providing a service for you and you're helping to maintain the system in the long run. That's what happens. I can tell you that, it's a blessing to be living this day and age when the narrative has shifted and the independent responsibility of self-awareness is a reality. You need to ensure that you're paying attention to all of the services that happen in your local community, and understand that America moved towards local control a long time ago, and that local control affects everyone. And understand that for whatever reason, we, the people in America, have turned a blind eye to all children having basic access to basic education. And then in 12 years, when they don't graduate or when they're not prepared to access society, then who do we fault? We fault the children. We don't fault the system. Oh no, we got some great teachers. There are good teachers out there. But then they get to choose where they work. And they get a lot of choices and everything. But choice doesn't allow you to overlook the responsibility to ensure that access was created for all children. That all children are citizens and equally entitled to the dollars, but more entitled if we're targeting a specific response. For poverty, we put a little extra money towards that. For special education, we put a little extra money towards that. For gifted and talented, we put a little extra money toward that. For neglected and delinquent, we put a little extra money towards that. And we even put a little extra money towards the homeless situation for the federal government. That's when the money, all the taxes are collected to the federal government. And then the federal government do the census, when they count all the individuals and everybody gets counted. But of course, we understand that some illegals may not want to be counted and they might not get counted. But that only impacts the ones who are still in need of the services. Because understand, just because they're not legally in this country doesn't mean they're not entitled to educational services and health services. I mean, come on now. Until they're deported, they're entitled. That's what we all need to understand. That just as being an American, they're going to address, or living in America, they're going to address the needs of access. So if you're bilingual, you have a right to have bilingual services. And America does address those needs of English language transition services. And so, but for Black people, specifically, understand compliance on the plantation and what it was and what it felt like. And what were the things that happened if you were non-compliant and failing to thrive. I don't even get it anymore. It's not about freedom. It's about entitlement and oversight and oppression and intimidation. And I could just list all negative words, and understanding that regardless of what the data looks like, everybody could be failing. And we, the people, would be choosing to ignore it. Either you ignore it because you didn't vote and you didn't get into any public meetings and you didn't share your concerns and you accepted the letter grade of F for your child all year. And then the next year it happened. And then the next year it happened. And then all of a sudden it's the kid's fault. You're just not trying hard enough. I can't imagine why you can't do this. And I can tell you every child learns differently. I can tell you that we are all different human beings. And on a strata of, a stratosphere of life, we all learn differently. But when we have a public school system that should have the ability to bring in community partners and bring in resources to create a program that's strong enough to sustain the educational services for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of children. And only a small percentage of those children are getting through because their parents have additional money to ensure that they can access those resources. And know that if you didn't have that opportunity, well, guess what? You should have known. That's why I said when people start talking about special education, like, oh, you don't want no special, you don't want your child to be labeled special ed. Oh, you don't want all that. And understand that you're just foolish. Because when you do have a special ed as the services, it's the federal government's guarantee for the offer of FAPE. And that would be a free and appropriate public education. But understand that free and appropriate public education can be a behavior modification if you need that. So it's whatever you need. And you get what you need because you get what you don't advocate for. And if you, it's kind of like, if you're not trying to get what you feel you have a right to, then nothing's going to happen for you. And I mean nothing. Kids come to public school and they get letter grades of Fs. And I'm just trying to wonder how they deal with that mentally. And then I see little 8-year-old baby girls killing themselves. And I understand the intimidation to have to go to school every day and never be able to be successful. I remember when it was like that for my son, and he was in elementary school. And this teacher was never going to allow him to have lunch with the group or get recognized for doing anything. He couldn't do anything right. And we went to war. I actually pulled my son out of her class and put him in the RSP room. That's a resource specialist program. And he spent the day in there all day. And I spent the all day at the school site. And that was in the 4th grade. But guess what? By the 6th grade, my son had moved to above proficient in the 6th grade with the accommodations, but he still moved above proficient. And when he graduated, he was above proficient. This is a child that they said was severely mentally retarded and communication handicapped. And you, as a parent, cannot allow them to label your child as being someone who has no capability of learning, especially when you can give a child a cell phone and they can functionally operate it, give a child a video game, they don't have any problems getting on the system, saving their games in the competition. I mean, there's so many things that kids just naturally do. And then people want to control that. Put away your cell phone. It becomes a real focus for someone who wants to control your behavior. Do you understand that they can suspend or take away your child's phone when the phone could be the very tool that a child needs to be successful? Because the phone can record conversations. The phone can look up information. The phone can take notes. The phone can do a lot of things that we never had opportunity to even have access to when we were young children. And it wasn't that long ago, but it seems like forever. And it really was forever. Because in this day and age, having a laptop, my son graduated with a laptop, a one-on-one aid, and above proficient. And that was just the federal government meeting him where he needed them to meet him. And that's what special education brings. It brings the services to you in the way you need them. And it measures the benefit. And if it's not measuring a benefit, well, guess what? You have another meeting and you decide what the benefit may be and how to work around that problem. That's where the federal government empowers a parent to be totally empowered. People say, oh, I want to do parent workshops. Well, what is a parent workshop? If you don't know anything about the public education system, and if you don't understand that by each grade level, there is certain expectations that a child will be able to do. But if your child's not having the ability to do it, then your child's far behind. And you can only go so far behind without catching up. Then you'll never catch up. Who realizes that California actually eliminated their responsibility to have all children meet 8th grade level proficiency? Because that's what the high school exit exam was all about. Exiting public education at 8th grade level. And that was a basic requirement. But guess what? They got rid of that simply because children were not graduating. They were not passing that test. They would get all the way down to the 12th grade and still have not passed the high school exit exam. So California said, oh, well, we can't keep this. So they moved to a certificate of completion. So they would give that to you because you still have to meet the same requirements to get a high school diploma. My, how quietly was that pushed under the rugs? Because guess what? The state still gets the money to give you the services that you never got. I don't understand how parents actually don't understand about the power and the intervention of services when people do need a different accommodation. All children learn differently. We are all different as human beings. There aren't many people that are my age that are blogging on the internet that are women. There are so few. I do not have any confidence issues. I do know that people have attacked me before publicly. Seems like a personal thing to me, but to each his own. They got to deal with it. I don't. What I do know is what I know for sure. And I know that The public education system exists to ensure that you have the ability to be functional after 12 years of public services to you. 12 years a slave as far as I'm concerned, because that's what's happening to so many African Americans. They're staying in the public education system for 12 years, and they're coming out indebted or enslaved to the system because they cannot sustain themselves. And everyone has to have a place to sleep. Everyone has to have a place to eat. Everyone has to have some form of shelter. And how we drive down the streets every day and ignore that there are so many homeless people living in what conditions, because the local people are not even accommodating the homeless population because they know it's out there. So they don't create places where people can take refuge. It's just not something that's happening. And then, they used to give the certificates or the vouchers to help you get a place. Well, guess what? The rents are so high that ain't no room for you in the damn inn. The battle in San Francisco or Oakland, it was in Oakland, about the women that had taken over the vacant home because they were homeless and they needed a place to stay. It was a critical battle because it says we the people have the right to have basic dignity. And if we are forced to participate in the system of compliance, ensuring that our children have access to basic services, then somehow the system needs to provide a pathway if we came upon hard times to manage to sustain ourselves and move towards sustainability. I don't get it. There are so many people working in private industry, and then there's a ton of people working in public services. And somehow the public services don't fit the needs of the local community. We, the people. I am an American citizen. I value that. I'm not leaving this country. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be in this nation. And therefore, I have a personal responsibility to ensure that I'm sharing the knowledge that I have gained over the past 61 years. Of course, the first 20 or so were development years, and the next 20 or so were still development years. And the next 20 were still development years. But this 1 year of living in Clark County and understanding that I, as an American citizen, do not have the right to question what is going on in the failed services in the public arena for African American children. How is it? I have to talk about this every time I get on because it just seizes me. How is it that any one population of people could have a 259% suspension rate above higher than any other ethnic group and nobody talk about it? How do you move into the entertainment capital of the world and put Diana Ross, Rick Ross, all the famous people in the world come to Las Vegas to perform and be on Regency. Didn't even know what Regency was. They'd be on a call on the the billboard, and they perform and they make so much money here on the entertainment of people. And then they brought the Oakland Raiders here. The Raiders, girl, they wouldn't even have gotten the Raiders if the Raiders didn't have so many black people on the team. Oakland Raiders. They didn't grow a home team here, but they have adopted one. And I hope that in adopting the home team of the Oakland Raiders that represent minorities in the community, that they can start allowing minorities to have access to basic services like education. How is it that you want to taught and you're 35th in the nation as far as everyone, but then you have, 35 blue ribbon schools? Is that how you got 35th in the nation? That you have 35 blue ribbon schools to talk about? blue ribbon schools or in the magnet schools, or 35 programs that are not operating like the regular schools where the regular children have no access, zero access. How is it that even in America, we have the hardest time to talk about, well, what's going on? What is going on? I really don't know. Technology is the answer. I can say, I love tech. I understand the consequences of tech. I know what tech does. I know because it's been important to some people to try to eliminate my opportunity to share my messages. But quite frankly, I'm going to keep on working until I make sure that I share my messages continual. This is just a straight recording to the cloud, the Zoom cloud. And then, of course, after it processes, then I'll upload it to YouTube and share it on Facebook and share it on any other platform that I can share it. Because it is we the people. And who's we the people? Any American person born in America who cares about this country, who understands that being an American is the most important thing in the world. And that the separation of powers between the executive branch, the judicial branch, and, the elected officials, meaning Congress, Republicans, and Democrats, it's a must if we're going to demand that we, the people, ensure that our children are being given a basic opportunity. This endless no support of children, and then you turn your head and every mass shooting has been because of a young Caucasian male shooting up because of his dysfunction and his inability to comprehend what's going on around him, and how difficult life is, because life is difficult. And when people lose their parents and they have hardships and there are no services, no real services for them, and then we just turn a blind eye and pretend that the shooters didn't have a real reason to go off 5150. We need to understand we have personal responsibility to address the needs of children who are going through psychotic or, psychiatric breakdowns when their family life is not stable. And we have to look at America and try to ensure that family lives are more stable, that families have basic opportunities for quality of life. Not that they're out there doing unconscionable behavior things, just to sustain basic level food or a place to sleep, or just try to stay warm. Do you realize that people are freezing to death on the streets where there's snow because they're homeless, and they're not talking about that? It reminds me of what happened in Katrina, and I know so many people died down there because they didn't offer the ride home. People who left didn't get to go back. They had to stay wherever they were shipped to because there was nothing for them to go back to. They lost everything. And I remember Katrina. I remember those shootings too. I remember everyone. And feared every time my children would go to school that someone would happen to one of their schools or where they were attending school. We don't change America by keeping our mouth shut or by going along with the narrative. We change America by going outside of our front doors, understanding that poverty is real, and that we need to identify things and hold people accountable that we put in office to ensure that access happens for all human beings, and that human rights and human dignity are so critical and so critically important. That's what I'll say. And that as an American citizen, a mother of three, a single mother of three, and now as a widow, because my ex is definitely not here anymore, but all through his own choices. Understand that personal choices are everything, and they do impact your life. But understand that if you don't have a basic opportunity to start life in a way that you can sustain yourself, that there's no catch up. There has to be a constant battle to ensure that we're moving forward in life. and that opportunity does exist and that you're making progress? How do we continue to pay people who want to go on vacation for the summer and then not create opportunities for the other children to even make minimal progress? Where is the maintenance of effort in the public school system for African Americans? How do they measure the benefit of integrating services through Brown versus the Board of Education and the integration that happened? And we had to use, come on now, the military to force integration in America. And guess what? I believe it's still a nasty taste in some folks' mouth. They hate to see African Americans who are supportive, or that they don't even see us as human beings. I suggest we all wake up, because I'm not leaving America, at least not willingly. I'm not ever leaving America. I plan on being, I was born here and I plan on being buried here in America because I'm an American citizen. And understand that there are many, many people who were born in America who are being denied access and the value of the voice to ensure that we, the people, have a voice in saying that we have a concern over the opportunity to learn in the public services or the public sector that our children are demanded to participate in. How is it that we can reprimand parents for not getting their children to school? And how is it that we want to pretend that truancy is such a huge issue when we won't even spend any of our time in professional development talking about creating pathways for all children? All children have a right to know. All children have a right to learn. The public education system should be overseen by the public. And when the public or any member of the public has a question about the disaggregated data and how is it that so many children are failing, and how is it that Nevada, not all of Nevada, but we can't even claim that too many kids come here because it's a place to be. No, it's not that. They have 15,000 homeless youth living on the streets of Las Vegas every night. And it's not like they come here and they join in a program and enlist in a program so that they can have an opportunity for life, because they come here and there's nothing here for them. We have a lot of sex trafficking here, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of dysfunctional people. Then we have people who are running programs of opportunity and alternative education that have no earthly purpose, meaning that they're not making any benefit. They seem to want to put our people, Black people, in alternative programs and not measure the maintenance of the benefit. But then they call themselves putting their children in charter schools, also alternative schools. But they don't let you come in. It is a reality that I have talked to lots of people with my concerns, because I had an opportunity to learn all these words, all these great words, and the, what is it? I want to say it, acronyms so that, we know that free and reduced lunch is, the first letter, free, and R, and then L. And they're talking about a population of people that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then they talk about, the weighted student formula and how much they're going to put out there for every student's going to drive that money. But then guess what? Then they don't break down where they're going to place their resources. So the resources get to choose wherever the fuck they want to work. And then ain't nobody want to work with children who don't have no skills, because they're still responsible for those skills. So they don't want to work with them, and they don't work with them. And that's just real. So failure becomes an option. How is it that we can have continual failure of human beings, meaning they're failing to thrive, and have no consequence? How do we continue to pay people to work with people and they're not making a difference? Isn't that the same as welfare fraud? It's fraud in the worst way, because we're messing up America. When people can't get a job after 12 years, when people would choose to make a crime or do commit a crime against someone because they're hungry or need a place to sleep. What is this nation that we're living in, that all of us cannot come together and stand up and talk about the conditions that we're expected to live in? It's a reality. It's a reality that it doesn't represent what my envisioned life was for America when I was growing up. Then, of course, we were struggling with the segregation issue, and nobody really wanted us in the school that we were going to. My last year of high school, or my high school years, I went to John F. Kennedy High School. And amazingly enough, when we used to take the bus in, the white parents were out there protesting because they didn't want those children from the other side of the tracks coming to their neighborhood. But guess what? They used those children from the other side of the tracks to document that they had enough students to meet the need of opening up a brand new school. They just happened to put it in that area. You understand? But they used the children from the poor neighborhood to document that they needed that school. But they shift children around. Children are considered the revenue. But we, the people, have to wake up and see that the plantation never shut down. The crops changed. It's human capital now. And you're part of the human capital. You choose. We all choose. Because the choice of inaction is the choice to choose just to fail. I'm going to come back and do more recordings. You have to know that it's time to do something. Then you say, well, what do we do? Everything is available to you to share your concerns with your elected officials online. Drop an email, send a text, make a phone call. Take 2 minutes out of your day to share this dysfunctional process that we're all expected to live with. They're not educating African American children, they're just holding them. They're not holding themselves accountable to ensure that all children have access, and we want to know why. What entitles them to have that kind of entitlement? Why do we pay people who are not doing the work? We need to ensure that we start working towards eliminating homeless, eliminating, creating opportunities for a sustainable community, ensuring that access really happens. It's a personal responsibility. We've only been given life for a short time, and nobody knows when they're going to go. But why not leave this world a better place? Why not do what we all were born to do? And that's the universe's work. You don't have to believe in God. You don't have to believe in Christ. You don't have to believe in, it's whatever you want to believe in. But understand that you were not given life for no reason. And you were not given life to just take advantage of other people's lives. We were brought here to make the world a better place so that our children can have a quality life. We're not looking down the road at the quality lives of our children anymore. We're looking about who should have the right to do what to who. And that bullying is just okay thing to do. And we can lock people up for what we believe or what we thought might have happened. Or people just lie and willfully participate in something and then change their mind. Oh, I changed my mind. I really didn't want to do that. That was rape. I got raped. Really? We all have a personal responsibility in personal relationships. If you don't want to be in a certain situation, don't put yourself there. Now, bad things happen to people all the time. It makes you want to get some mace and a gun, because we should all be armed so that we can protect ourselves. Because we can't pretend that we are the ones that can ensure that we can protect ourselves. We have to be aware of what's happening around us all the time. We have to know that if we, the people, choose not to stand up this year in 2020, with the data that's coming out of the public education system, that we have nothing to lose anymore, because we've lost everything. We have a disproportionate number of African Americans in special education. You go over to Luther Burbank on Florida Road in Sacramento anytime during the summer and see all the young Black males that are in special ed. And they're over there getting dittos. It's not supporting their education. There's nothing about education that's supporting African American students who are below grade level and in high school. Nothing is going to lead to anything, and the certificate of completion is not going to get you a job. It's not going to lead to a functional life, because we're not tied into life, and we're not tied into life history. We don't know anything about the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment. People don't even know anything about the historically Black colleges. They've never taken the ACT, and they're getting a certificate of completion because they're not at grade level. And Sacramento does this great thing called Z-coding, where they Z-code the curriculum for kids in special ed, and they're not doing the same level of work as other children. And it's just like separate but equal, but it's not equal, because you can't do anything if you don't have a basic education. This is so frustrating to me, that it's hard to, what will we do as the people? Who are we the people? We the people are Americans. It doesn't matter what color your skin color is. It means that if the system is not sustaining life, our system is not going to sustain our lives. And one day you will be in that same situation as to be homeless. The opportunity exists for all of us. I'm going to sign off for now. I was waiting for someone to come in, but they never came in. So this is a great program. I'm going to upload in a little bit and put it on YouTube. Today is January. It's Friday. I don't even know what date today is. Let's look at the date here. January the 24th, 2020. And I had a talk with someone in research and accountability today in Clark County School District. And she said, look, your concerns are definitely above my pay grade. And I've talked to a lot of people in Clark County School District and tried to reach out to the board members that are over my area. And they quickly avoid me. And I joined the NAACP here. And it's not that the NAACP is not a great organization, but they really document on a global level here about the wonderful Las Vegas and how wonderful it is. But we don't never touch the failed services here in Clark County and talk about the real issues, because that's just too overwhelming for the people that are involved in the local chapter here. And so they have chosen to kind of turn a blind eye, basically, to the failed public services here. That's how come they have a 256% suspension expulsion rate. And that's why they have kids up there on the mountain. They have a place where they put these children who have no skills. And they try to keep them there for a long time, because they have prison here. And with the prison having the impact of such a small population of people in America, but having a great large percentage of beds occupying the prison, I don't ever want to go, ever. I can't imagine it, being denied the freedom of choice. So, if you choose to have a child, understand that you have to choose to investigate the resources that will best support that child. And if you're not being served in the current situation, that you need to choose to use your feet and find a situation where your child can be successful. That's what we need to do in 2020. I'll tell you the plan. If it ain't working for you, then you need to find a place where it can work for you. All children have a right to learn. All children have the ability to learn. All children learn differently. Differently. But it's up to the parent to make those choices, to wake up and to understand that the letter grade of F is not for fantastic. It's not for future. It's for failure, failed services. And that we have far too many African American children who are in high school with less than 100 credits in the 12th grade. That means they're not going to graduate. They are not going to graduate. It's not going to happen. What they are going to do is be an appendage on the system. They're going to, create opportunities where people have to figure that they have to defend themselves. That, it was a choice of safety, public safety, when they run up on our young people in the middle of the night. And it doesn't have to be an issue. We all need to be valued as American citizens, valued as human beings, valued with human rights, and knowing that failure is just never the only option. And changing the dynamics for children who are willing to commit suicide at 8 years old. Someone please help me. How is it that level of bullying, that level of failed services are even acceptable in the year of 2024, when we don't even have to go to a classroom? We can sit in front of a computer and do it and learn, because we can communicate across the whole world. The whole world. The world is your audience. The world, not 2 or 3 people. And this lasts forever, as long as we have the cloud. This video would be out there forever and chase me to the grave. But if I choose not to share the level of knowledge that I have gained in my 61 years, then that means that I failed to do the one thing that I was expected and put here in the universe to do. And that's to each one, reach one, and teach one. Every day. So, like I said, signing off January 24th in the year of 2020. And I'm hoping to come back. I'm going to have an opportunity to come back because, my mom's on a little vacation, so I don't have to hear the TV, and you don't have to hear the TV either. And we can talk. And maybe I'll go live on Facebook and then get a lot more people involved in the conversation. That's the most I can do. But until then, you guys have a great Friday night. Have a great Friday night. Thank you. And I'll be checking with you soon. This is DA signing out.